Hello and welcome to TV Talks, the show where we take a look at both the good and the bad of what television has to offer. It's been a while since we've done one of these, so today let's do something special. The League of Super Evil, or as the show would probably prefer to be called, The League of Super Evil. It does that a lot for its transitions. It'd make more sense if you actually seen the show, which, judging by its episode number, I'm guessing to say you haven't. So this thing was announced in 2008. And where does it come from? Canada! Oh, Canada. The country with a lot of nice people and a lot of really bad animation. You see, Canada is known for having a lot of lackluster shows. They can either be really good or they can be really, really bad. And a lot of the time they end up being really, really bad. But hey, when they get it right, they get it really right, like the first 3 seasons of Total Drama. And that's all that really comes to mind at the moment. Yeah, a lot of their cartoons don't really hit the mark, and how does League of Super Evil pan out? Well, I'll explain that in a moment. Let's talk a little bit more about history. So, this aired on not Teletoon, actually. A lot of people think it is Teletoon because, a lot of this kind of stuff comes from Teletoon. But it actually aired on YTV, which is basically just kind of the same thing as Teletoon with some minor exceptions. So the League of Super Evil premiered there and on Cartoon Network in 2009. Granted, the show was originally set to be released in 2008, but eventually, due to production stuff, it all ended up coming out in 2009 anyways. So, League of Super Evil in both channels was hyped up a lot because it actually has a really good premise. There are 4 supervillains, Voltar, Dr. Frog, Red Menace, and Doomageddon, and they live in this town called Metrotown, and they are a bunch of super evil, maniacal people who do things like glue pennies to the sidewalk and try to get all the ice cream from ice cream trucks for free, stopping pizza deliveries, and just being overall nuisances. Yeah, this is a show about a bunch of villains that actually can't be villains, and that sounds a lot of fun, actually. These people that just think they're the most maniacal, insane, malevolent people ever, yet they're no more harmful than just like a housefly. Because that's all they really amount to is just causing a bunch of trouble. So who are these characters? Well, there's Voltar, like I said. He is the evil leader, and he has a lot of delusions of grandeur. He thinks that the League of Super Evil, for a future reference known as LOSE, their acronym, again, great, who just has no idea what he's doing. He always has the opportunity to do big, evil things, but he thinks that doing all this kind of petty stuff like not inviting neighbors to parties, or opening up a bank account just so we can get a free toaster, is just the most evil thing ever, and he could be like right on par with the Joker or Lex Luthor or something, although they don't mention those people by name because, they don't own them. Then there's Dr. Frog, who I think is the best character because he actually is completely 100% dangerous and evil. It's just that he's with these other idiots, so he's kind of being held back. However, we've seen later on that he more lacks a spine, so he has the evil mind. He just needs an evil leader to help him do it, which, of course, since he's with Voltar, no. Then there's Red Menace, who tries so hard to be evil, but he just can't seem to get it right. He reminds me a lot of Dave from Dave the Barbarian. He's big, he's intimidating, but he can't do his job. Then there's Doomageddon, who's just the dog that causes trouble, probably the weakest character of the 4. So, those are the characters for League of Super Evil. This sounds really good, huh? Well, and of course there's all those plots I told you about where, again, they take these petty, stupid things and just stretch them out to this massive scale to the point where it's just ridiculous. So this show sounds really good, right? No. It sounds great, and the characters sound great too. Even the voice acting, again, makes it go to that they sound great. But there's one problem that just ruins the League of Super Evil. The writing is not bad, but nowhere near good. Yeah, it's another one of those Canadian cartoons where it's just kind of, let's just go with the first draft and maybe no one will notice. That's really what it feels like. I'm sorry. They tried in some areas, like the concepts and the premise, and especially the voice acting. Animation, it's Flash again, but it looks a little stylized, I guess. It's not a good stylized, but at least it's different than all the other things. So what is it about the writing that just doesn't work? Well, they try to throw in a lot of jokes, and really the only jokes that seem to land are just how extreme and how far they're taking this. Other than that, all the one-liners they try and all these quirky things that they throw in just don't land. I mean, they're not bad, it's just that there could have been so much more. It's like they kind of wrote these episodes all in one afternoon, and you just kind of look at it thinking, wow, these concepts are great, but you're not doing anything. You're not really trying to tell very many jokes. Even the jokes they do try to tell just kind of seem really obvious and really flat, like everybody's kind of done these jokes before. For example, there's an episode where they have these two henchbots that they come back sometimes because they're here sometimes, but more often than not, they're not there. Anyways, the henchbots are apparently malfunctioning, so they go into this Apple XP, and then they have to go get new ones. Turns out those henchbots were ultra rare, ultra classic. What do they do with that? Nothing. So, okay, they're moving on from that. So they get these two new, big, powerful ones, and the only joke throughout the entire episode is that the only way to get these Apple XP giant robots to work is to buy a bunch of upgrades. It's funny the first time, but then when you realize that's the only joke they're going to be telling throughout the majority of this episode, yeah, it gets old. It's stuff like that where they have one or two jokes they just like to harp on over and over. Then they have a bunch of other little ones in there that just kind of feel like they've been done. And it's a shame too, because this show has a lot of promise. Like I said, a great cast and a great set of characters and some really interesting plots and a really overall good premise. It just didn't land. I think that if they put a little bit more work into it or maybe tried to be a little bit more out there, it could have been really good. I think one of the problems with League of Super Evil is that it is a kid's show. Hear me out on this. I know that YTV, obviously is for kids. I mean, it's kind of part of the name. If I'm guessing what the acronym means correctly, that is. I think it could have been something like Invader Zim, where it aims for older kids, or maybe even could have been for adults. Think about it, with this kind of premise and Invader Zim style humor, if you were allowed to push the envelope a bit, this could have been really good. You could have had Dr. Frog go way insane. You could have had Red Menace, probably actually the same, and Voltar's ego go way far and just have them be in this dark, dingy world where nothing makes sense, everything's out to get you. Kind of like with Invader Zim again. Or you could have done something, as much as I'm not that big on the show, like Rick and Morty, that kind of style of humor. Just push it a bit further. It feels too safe, like I've said. They're a little bit repetitive, a little bit, let's just do this. It could have taken a lot of chances and a lot of risks, given what it's lined up with, but it just didn't. It just kind of feels like just another Canadian cartoon, which I feel makes it worse than all those Canadian cartoons that don't really do anything good, because they had something here. They really had something, and then they did nothing with it. And that's what America realized, because season 1 was the only season to air on Cartoon Network. The ratings were horrible for this show in Cartoon Network. Granted, the first few episodes did really well because there were a lot of people like me. Wow, that sounds funny. The advertisements are really good. Let's give this show a chance. And then everybody hated it because it was just a waste. And then they decided not to air it on Cartoon Network anymore. So season 2 only aired in Canada. Big surprise. But then season 3 rolled around because this thing actually got a third season a lot later than season 2. It's kind of like what happened with the Nut Shack, where they needed something to fill it in and then just kind of like, oh look, there's this show, let's bring that back. For all I know though, League of Super Evil season 3 could have been in production and just been delayed a bit. But let's face it, this show was never really a killer app for the channel. But they got it debuted in the UK, right? So that's good, it's out in the UK. And it did nothing to help the ratings, and then the show was canceled after that. Not a surprise. Everybody, critics and audiences alike, seem to echo my opinions. However, there's one little difference that I have with it, being that I kind of want to see this continued. I want to see it come back, but maybe rebooted. I don't know. I mean, we're rebooting everything that moves these days, so we might as well reboot this. Why is it that we never reboot shows that could have been something and then make them something, and instead we just reboot shows that were something and then make them nothing? That's the opposite of what we want. Anyways, just try this again. Give it another go. Maybe get a different crew behind it or something. It could have been really good. But as it stands, is the show bad? I wouldn't go that far. It's more disappointing than it is bad. But it's not good either. Which I think you all know what that means. This thing gets nothing.
You get nothing!
It could have been good, but it also could have been really bad. But instead it just took the middle route and just kind of was there. Such a shame. Oh well, What did you guys think of League of Super Evil or League of Super Evil? Comment below, let me know. And I'll see you next time on TV Talks where we talk more about our favorite family, The Simpsons.
Good night, everybody.